But like I said, what do you do with someone with an allergy? What do you do with someone who's immunocompromised, or someone who, for religious or deep convictions, decides that no, they're not going to get a vaccine? We're not a country.
What do you do?
Well, we're not a country that makes vaccination mandatory, for example, but we want to encourage everyone to get it.
Wow. Trudeau sounded like a decent human being for a second there. Yeah, it didn't last.
The freedoms and the rights of Canadians to get back to the things we love to do. We know the way through this pandemic is by getting everyone vaccinated. And the overwhelming majority, close to 90% of Canadians, have done exactly that. The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country.
So ensuring freedoms, rights, and values by giving up freedoms, rights, and values. Yeah, thanks, Justin. That makes a ton of sense. And I have to wonder, where did all that empathy go to? Where did all that Canada doesn't do mandates? Where did that go to? Why is he talking about fringe minorities and unacceptable views? Unacceptable views, according to Justin Trudeau. Well, as it turns out, when he talked about how Canada doesn't do mandates, and when he talked about how some people might not be able to get the vaccine and you have to respect people's freedoms, yeah, he didn't mean any of that. He was lying. He was saying something that he thought would be politically expedient for him at the time, and as soon as he decided that it was better for him to be the complete opposite of that, well, that kind of answers itself, doesn't it? I mean, check this out. Trudeau calls the unvaccinated racist and misogynistic extremists. And this is all within months, right? He changed his mind real quick. Now, I personally think it might be because he has no core moral foundation. And maybe he's just a bad person. I mean, he's saying he questioned whether the rest of Canada needs to tolerate the unvaccinated. Again, he goes from Canada doesn't do mandates to should Canada even tolerate the unvaccinated? It makes me think of this tweet from Maxime Bernier, the leader of the People's Party of Canada. He said, Justin Trudeau claims to fight for tolerance, diversity, and inclusion. It's all bullshit. He's a fascist psychopath and is the most intolerant, authoritarian, and divisive prime minister in Canadian history. Well, I'm not going to argue with him. And how about this tolerance, diversity, and inclusion? Because when he's talking about these misogynists and racists, who is he talking about? Is he talking about low vaccination rates amongst BC First Nations people a concern? Is he talking about Indigenous Northerners less likely to be vaccinated? Is he talking about why Canada's Indigenous have vaccine worries? Just who are you talking about exactly, Mr. Trudeau? I'm not the only one asking questions of Trudeau. Here's Jordan Peterson. It's been over a year since a quick return to normal was promised once the vaccines arrived in Canada and were widely distributed and used. Where's normal, Justin Trudeau? Why would anyone trust anything you say now? Leave us alone, Justin Trudeau. What you are doing is utterly unconscionable. This is going to cause more grief and misery than you have the courage and intelligence to imagine. What's he talking about here? Well, he's talking about this. Ottawa's 180-degree turn on mandatory vaccination. We're not a country that makes vaccination mandatory, said Trudeau in May. I've shown you that video. He was lying. Last week, the Minister of Health suggested for the first time that mandatory vaccinations could be coming to Canada. If implemented, mandatory vaccination would mark the first time during the pandemic that Canada has pursued a public health measure without any precedent in prior disease outbreaks. So we've gone from Canada doesn't do mandates to get it or you're a racist and a misogynist, and we're going to force you to anyway. And this is all while the UK drops their restrictions. Face masks will no longer be mandatory in public places and schools in England, and COVID passports will be dropped for large events as infections level off in large parts of the country. So you could do this, but Trudeau's not going to do that. Not until he absolutely has to, if ever, because this has given him more power than he ever could have dreamed of. No, he'll do things like mandates for truckers, because inflation and supply chain issues aren't bad enough. Hey, the inflation in Canada is only at a 30-year high after all. And guess what? Trucker vaccine rule is making freight and fruit pricier. It's going to make everything pricier. The cost of transporting produce out of California and Arizona to Canada jumped 25% in the last week, as fewer trucks are available to cross the border. The lower the supply, the higher the price. Ultimately, it's the consumer that pays for this. And why do this? What is the purpose of this? Is this going to stop the spread of Omicron? Of course not. It's not that this won't work, it's that it can't work. It can't achieve any positive goal. All it can do is hurt people. That's it. Oh, sorry, and Trudeau's betting that it'll help him politically, right? And that's all he actually cares about, of course. Oh, wait a second, what was it that Maxime Bernier said again? Fascist psychopath, that's right. And just to end this off, PM Trudeau is in isolation after a COOF exposure. Must have been a trucker, you think, right? Must have been a trucker. Who else could it be? Oh, he was exposed when he appeared alongside 3 ministers at a press conference on Parliament Hill. And he's tested negative. He's fine. He's probably thinking of new ways to divide and demonize the population of Canada right at this very moment. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. Please subscribe, like, and share. That really helps me out. If you'd just like to listen, there's the podcast Radio Baloney. It's on pretty much every platform. If you look for it, you will find it. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time.